Hey, this is Toby. Today I will show you how to calculate dynamic lot size in mql5 so you can get results like this one here for yourself. Okay, let's go. Okay, so this is the same strategy with a fixed lot size, and in this video we will add a dynamic lot size calculation to the strategy so we can risk like $100 per trade or even like 1% of the account. And in the end, we will also do a backtest to see if we can even improve this strategy here with the dynamic lot size calculation. And of course, I will also show you the strategy and all the settings. Okay, let's switch to meta editor and restart coding. Okay, so here we are in the meta editor. And for this video, I will use the time range EA to add a dynamic lot size. But of course, you can use any other expert advisor. We just coded this EA here on the channel. It was a little coding series. I will link the first part up here if you want to use the same expert advisor. Okay, so first of all, I opened this file here, time range EA, and now I will save it with a new name. So save as, and let's call it time range EA dynamic lots. Okay, let's save the file. And this is the expert advisor where we want to add a dynamic lot size calculation. Okay, so first of all, let's compile this file here and let's take a look at the input in the strategy tester. So if we go to the MetaTrader 5 platform, open the strategy tester here, and now we may have to refresh here the expert advisors. So we can select the time range EA dynamic lots here, and now we can take a look here at the inputs tab. And we see for the lot size, we can enter a fixed value. So we want to change that so we can enter, for example, to risk $100 per trade or even like 1% of the account per trade. So let's go to meta editor and we will add the dynamic lot size input here under the input section. Okay, so first of all, let's create some space here after the magic number. And we want to create a enum so we can select the lot mode we want to use. So we just type enum. We call it maybe just lot mode enum. And here we will have different options. The first one, of course, will be still a fixed lot size input. So lot mode fixed. The second one, maybe lot mode money, and the last one, lot mode percent account. So these are the options for the lot input, and we can also write a comment here so it's easier to read. Let's say fixed lots. Next one, lots based on money and lots based on percent of account. Okay, and now we have our enum here, and now we want to use this enum as a input. So we can write input, and now the type is now our lot mode enum, and the name input lot mode, for example. And we can set the default value of this input here to lot mode fixed maybe. And we can also write a comment here, lot mode. Okay, let's compile and let's take a look how this looks in the strategy tester. Yeah, we can see here now the lot mode, and of course the default is the fixed lots. And now we have a drop down here, lots based on money and lots based on percent of account. So we can select the lot mode we want to use. Okay, now we also need to change this lot size input here a little bit, because now we can enter here different values basically depending on the lot mode we selected here. So let's change this input here. It's still a double input lots. That's fine for the name. But now here we change the comment maybe to lots slash money slash %. And so depending on the option here, we enter here the lot size or the money we want to risk per trade or the % we want to risk per trade. Okay, let's compile. And if we take a look now in the tester here, we can see the drop down here, and depending on the drop down, we enter the lot size or money or %. Okay, so let's check the input of the user in our check input function. Because, for example, if we have the lot mode money selected, we need a stop loss, and also for the percentage of the account, we need a stop loss to calculate the lot size. So let's go down to the check inputs function here. And here we already have a check for the lot size, but now of course we need to add a few more checks. So first of all, we want to make sure that we are in the lot mode fixed lot. So lot mode fixed. In this case, the lot size we enter here in this input should not be equal or below 0, and maybe also not greater than 10, for example. But of course, you can set these limits here, the upper limit, depending on your needs. But I would say 10 lots is enough for this EA. Okay, and then we also want to edit this alert function here, lots below or equal to 0 or greater than 10. Okay, now for the next option, we have the lot mode money, and here the lot input should not be below 0 again or equal to 0, and I mean the upper limit, maybe we put 1k here, but of course you can edit this if you want to risk more than 1k per trade. Okay, and now the last option, lot mode % of account, and in this case the lot input should not be below 0, of course, and maybe let's say 5% of the account is the upper limit. So we also change this here, and we also need to add another bracket here just to clarify that we want this to be true in the condition and one of these conditions in order to display this error message here. So we also add a bracket here and here. Let's compile. Okay, that looks fine. And now, as I said before, we also want to make sure that if we have the lot mode money selected or the lot mode % account, we want to make sure that we have a stop loss active. Because if we go up to the inputs, we can see here the stop loss input. If the stop loss is 0, it's basically off, so we don't use a stop loss. So we want to make sure that we have a stop loss. Let's just copy this last section here, that we have a stop loss if we have the money mode selected or % account selected. So input lot mode is % account, or the input lot mode is money. We also add some brackets here. So one of these conditions here, one of these has to be true, and also that the stop loss is 0 in this case. So then we want to display a error message. Let's say selected lot mode needs a stop loss. Okay, and if the stop loss is below 0, of course, then we would get this error message here. So with these checks, the inputs should be valid, and otherwise we will get an error message for the user. Okay, let's compile again, and we can check this now. If we switch to the platform here, for example, we enter fixed lots, and we enter just a very big number that doesn't make any sense for the lot size. And if I press start now, if I switch to the journal tab here, we can see the error message here, lots below or equal to 0 or lots greater than 10. Okay, let's also test if we select, for example, based on money, and we enter, for example, a negative value here. This should also give us an error message here again. And also for the third option, if we enter, for example, 50% of the account, should not be possible because we set the upper limit to 5 here. Okay. And also now if we select a valid, if we enter a valid percentage here, but now let's set the stop loss to 0. So then we are, of course, not able to calculate the lot size depending on the stop loss. So if I click start now, we should also get a error message. Yeah, selected lot mode needs a stop loss. Okay, so that's working fine. And we can start to write the functions to calculate a dynamic lot size. Okay, so we only need to create 2 functions to calculate a dynamic lot size. Okay, so we can go down and I don't know, we can put it anywhere we want, but let's say here between the close position and the check breakouts function, we can just write a comment, calculate lots, and this function will be a Boolean return type, and the name calculate lots. And we will have 2 inputs. So the first one is a double. It's the stop loss distance. And the second one will be passed as a reference. So we get the value back basically. It's also a double, and it's our calculated lots here. Okay, in the end, of course, we want to return true. And now we can calculate the lot size in this function. Okay, so first of all, we want to set the lots parameter here to 0, just to make sure. If the calculation fails, the lots variable here is set to 0. And next step is to check the selected lot mode. So let me scroll this up a little bit. So we can write a if statement here and check our input lot mode. If this is equal to lot mode fixed, then of course we only need to set our input lots to this lots variable here. So input lots, and then we will have a fixed lot size basically. Okay, now the other option, of course, is a dynamic lot size. And for this other option, we need the stop loss distance. So here, first of all, we need to get some variables in order to calculate the dynamic lot size. So the first one is a tick, the tick size. And we can get the tick size if we write symbol info double, and now the symbol. This is our current symbol. And now symbol, how is it called? Trade. Oh, trade tick size. Here. And we also need to get a few other variables here. So tick size, tick value, and the last one, volume step. Okay, so let's align a little bit. So here for the second one, symbol trade, and then tick value, and for the last one, symbol trade, or just symbol volume step. Okay. Let's compile. Okay, no errors, no warnings. Perfect. And now we can calculate the risk we want to take per trade in the account currency. So for this, we write another variable here, double risk money, for example. And depending on the lot mode, so if the lot mode, for example, is lot mode money, then we can just set this variable here to our, or from our input lots, because there we entered a specific amount we want to risk per trade. So we can just write input lots, or else. So else would be a percentage of account. We can set the risk money from our account size and calculate the percentage. So we can use account info double for this. And let's get the account. We can use the balance, of course, but we can also use the equity. And then we just need to multiply this, of course, by our input lots. Here, for example, this is 1, which means 1%. So then we also have to multiply this by 0.01 or divided by 100. Okay, so we have now the amount we want to risk per trade here in this variable. Okay, let's compile again just to make sure. Okay, so now we can calculate the, let's call it money volume step. And we can calculate this by just using the stop loss distance here and divide it by our tick size, maybe like this, and then multiply by the tick value, and then multiply it by our volume step, like this. Okay, now we can calculate the lots. So our lots variable here equals we will round the value down to the next possible lot step. So we can use the risk money here now and divide it by the money volume step, and then we multiply it by the volume step. So multiply volume step, and this should give us the lot size depending on the amount we want to risk per trade here. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit and let's compile and check if we have any errors. Okay, that's perfect. Now we have calculated the lots. We want to check against the minimum and maximum values of the symbol, and also again for the lot step, because if we just enter here the lot mode fixed, of course it's possible that we enter a value like 1.2546, and that's of course not a valid lot size input. So we will write another function to check the calculated lots. So here we can write a comment, check calculated lots, and now we just call a function, check lots, and the input parameter here is of course our lots variable, and if this fails, we also want to return false, just like this. Okay, now of course we need to write this function here. So right after our calculate lots function, we can now write a comment on check lots for min, max, and step. And we also want to the return type boolean here for this function, check lots, and our input parameter is of course again double, and we also pass it as a reference, so we can modify it here inside the function, lots, and in the end we want to return true. Okay, now we should be able to compile without any mistakes. Perfect. Okay, now we only need to check the lots, and then we can use the calculate lots function before we open a trade. Okay, so let's write this check lot function. I will scroll up a little bit. Okay, so here we can also declare a few variables. So for example, the minimum value, and we again get it from symbol info double here, and again our current symbol, and then symbol, I think, volume min, and then we just copy this line 3 times because we also want to get, of course, the max value. Change this here to max, and we want to get again the step of the volume, step. Okay, now we have these 3 variables here, and now we can check against the minimum, for example. If we just write an if statement, if our lots variable here is below the minimum allowed value, then maybe we want to set the lots to the minimum value. Of course, you can also give out a error message to not take any trades, but let's just set it to the minimum value. So first of all, we want to print a message maybe. Let's say lot size will be set to the minimum allow, maybe something like this, because allowable volume. And then we also want to set the lots, of course, to the minimum value. And in this case, we don't need to check for the step or maximum value. We can just return true. Okay, let's compile. Perfect. Okay, now we also want to check against the maximum allowed volume here. So we can just add another if statement. If lots greater than max, and also print out a message for the user. So print, let me just, sorry. So print lot size greater than maximum volume, and we can also print out the actual values. So let's just write lots here, print out the lots variable, and then also the max, maybe like this. Okay, let's compile. Perfect. And in this case, of course, we want to return false. And now the last step inside this check lots function here is to set the lots to the allowed step size. So now we can just write lots here, and we will use this function here to round down, and we just need to use the lots variable here divided by the step size, and then again multiply it by the step size. Like this. Okay, and in the end we return true, and that's it for the check lots function. We call this function here from inside our calculate lots function. So now we only have to call this function before we want to open a trade to calculate our lot size. Okay, so that's pretty much the last step and also very simple. Okay, but before, let's compile again, just to make sure that these two functions are correct. And now we can go to the place where we open a trade. And for our expert advisor, for the time range EA, this is here in the check breakouts function. And here we want to open a buy position. So before we open this position, we can add a comment, calculate lots. And now we can just call our calculate lots function. The inputs now for the stop loss distance. Of course, we can use the current bid price. This is a buy trade, so the stop loss is below this last tick bid price here. And so we can just subtract the calculated stop loss here. So this will give us the distance from the opening price of the trade to the stop loss price. And now for the next parameter, of course, our lots. If this function here fails, we want to return. Because this is a void function, we just need to return. We cannot return true or false. And we also want to declare our lots variable here before we call this function. Okay, let's compile. And now let's do the same for a sell trade. So here we open a sell position. And after we calculated the stop loss and take profit, we will insert calculate lots. Again here, but this time we have to turn this around. So our stop loss minus last tick dot ask. So because the stop loss is for a sell position, of course, greater than the entry price of the trade. So this will also give us the distance, and then we pass the lots as a reference here. And we also want to return if this call here fails. And now we only need to use our calculated lots variable here in our trade.positionOpen function call. So instead of input lots, we replace that with our lots variable. And also here for the buy trade, input lots, replace this with lots variable. Okay, this should be it for the dynamic lots calculation. Let's compile and let's switch to MetaTrader and we check if our function works. Okay, so in order to test our dynamic lots calculation, first of all, we select the option fixed lots here, and we will use one lot for each trade. And we also want to make sure that we have a stop loss. That's not important for the fixed lot option, but later, of course, for the dynamic calculation. So we just use 200% of the range. And let's do a visual test here. And let's see. Yeah, we can see we use just one lot for each trade. Okay, now let's test the second option where we want to risk, for example, $100 per trade. Let's also do a visual test here. Let's take a look at some trades where we hit the stop loss. Here, for example. And also here, $100 loss. And here again. Again, it's not exactly $100, but around $100 per trade risk. Okay, now the last option is in percent of account. So let's just risk 1%, for example. And we have a 100K account here. So if we do a test, we should risk 1K per trade. Okay, we can see here 1K. Again here. And this, of course, will increase or decrease depending on the performance of the strategy. Okay, so now our dynamic lot size calculation is working fine. Let's see if we can improve the strategy I showed you in the beginning of the video by just changing from a fixed lot size to a dynamic lot size. So the settings for the strategy I showed you, we had a stop loss of 90% of the range, no take profit. The range start in minutes after midnight was 90. And the range duration was 270. And we close all positions in the evening at 8 p.m. We do one breakout per range and we trade on every weekday. Okay, so let's do a simple test here. We will use the US dollar Japanese yen, every tick mode here, the last 2 years. Let's see how the strategy is performing. You can see that the equity is already pretty nice, but let's see if we can improve that even further with the dynamic lot size. So this is the equity curve with a fixed lot of 1. And let's also take a look at the profit factor. Here it's 1.46. And let's see if we can improve that. So we go to the inputs tab. If we select lots based on money and we want to risk, for example, $100 per trade. And now let's start this test again. Take a look at the equity curve. And yeah, we can see we get a much better result here with a dynamic lot size. Of course, you can use the strategy, but I would always test for yourself. And now let's take a look at the backtest results here. And we can see also the profit factor has improved to 1.51. So of course, this is a very simple strategy, but you can also use the dynamic lot size calculation for any other expert advisor. So you just have to add the inputs here. And then you have to create the two functions, the calculate lots function here and the check lots function. And then before you open a trade, you just call the calculate lots function and you can use the lots here in your open position call. Okay, if you want to code this specific EA and also get a equity curve like this one here for yourself, I showed the full code of this expert advisor here on the channel. I will link the first part up here so you can go watch it. And if this video was helpful for you, it would be nice if you just leave a like. And in the next videos, I will show you how to code a trading stop loss in mql5 and a lot of other strategies. So if you don't want to miss that, you can always subscribe to my channel. And yeah, I will see you in one of the next videos. Bye.